Meanwhile, Amara sat outside by herself, the serene calm of the lake wrapping around her as she tried to make sense of what the old lady had told her. That she had fallen from the stairs, hit her head, and that was why she had lost all her memories. She ran her hands through her hair, thinking about how her body felt completely fine. No bruises, no pain. How could she have fallen at all? She thought about the woman telling her she was her godmother, that she had been raised by her since childhood because her parents had died, and everything felt foreign, alien, as if she were waking up into someone else's life. She tried desperately to recall even a fragment of a memory, any lingering image, any sense of familiarity, but there was only silence, only emptiness. Liwei's grandmother appeared, carrying a bowl of steaming soup, and she sat beside her, handing it over gently, telling her that it was chicken herb soup, nourishing, good for her body, that it would help restore her strength. Amara's hand paused mid-air, her eyes fixing on the bowl, the name stirring something distant inside her, a flicker of familiarity. She looked up at liwei's grandmother and softly asked, addressing her as grandmother, if perhaps she had tasted this soup before because it sounded familiar. Her grandmother nodded, a small smile playing on her lips, telling her yes, it had always been her favorite dish, and she should eat it before it grew cold. Amara thanked her and took a spoonful, the warmth spreading through her chest, and she looked up again, curiosity sharp in her eyes, asking what kind of person she was, whether she had many friends. Liwei's grandmother paused, choosing her words carefully, telling her that she loved studying, that she cherished her course in medicine, that she was lively, and that she had a friend she was close to, a girl with purple hair, someone full of energy, and Amara smiled faintly, as if imagining this life she had forgotten, imagining her own vitality and the friendships she might have had. Then her gaze sharpened, questioning, asking if perhaps there was a man in her life, someone she had been close to, someone important. At the question, liwei's grandmother tensed, a flicker of panic crossing her face, and she asked cautiously why Amara would suddenly ask such a thing. Amara explained, her voice hesitant, that she had this feeling, a sense of something missing, someone important, flashes of a man's figure, a voice distant, indistinct, but powerful enough to tug at her chest, and that when she had napped earlier, she had seen him, but could not see his face clearly. She leaned closer, insistently asking again if there had been someone she had been deeply connected to. Liwei's grandmother shook her head, reassuring her that there was no one, perhaps just friends from school, perhaps a lecturer, but nothing more, nothing that should trouble her. Amara sat quietly, letting the words sink in, trying to believe them. Yet an ache persisted in her chest, a sensation that something vital was missing. She asked for her cell phone, thinking she could find a clue there, but her grandmother explained gently that it had been lost long ago and that she had planned to get a new one soon, diverting the conversation, insisting she eat before the soup grew cold. Amara nodded, snapped back from her spiraling thoughts, and ate slowly, sipping the warm soup, feeling its comfort. Meanwhile, liwei approached the house, his steps slow, heavy with absence, with emptiness pressing against his chest. The moment he stepped inside, the quiet of the rooms, the stillness, the lack of her presence struck him, and his chest tightened. He thought of how by now she would have run to him, jumped into his arms, laughing with joy at seeing him, how the house would have echoed with her presence. Now, silence stretched around him, every corner, every room, every trace of her still lingering like ghosts of their memories together. He looked toward the kitchen where she might have been preparing his favorite soup, the warmth of those moments clashing with the hollow quiet of the present. His heart ached as he lingered, tracing the memories she had left in every nook, every place holding fragments of them. Deep in thought, the doorbell rang, pulling him from the past, and he moved, each step tense, cautious, toward the door. When he opened it, his eyes darkened instantly as he saw her, Yan, standing there, her gaze fixed on him, a smile playing dangerously on her lips, and in that moment, the air between them crackled, heavy with tension, every memory of Amara flashing through his mind as his pulse quickened, every instinct telling him that nothing good could come from this encounter. Yan stood there looking at Liwei, who just stood his ground, his eyes fixed on her. She said she was there to check on him after everything that happened, insisting that they were now husband and wife and that, bound by that, they were bound to see each other anyway. Liwei kept his gaze sharp, his chest tightening, the sight of her igniting every memory of what she had done. The image of Amara almost dying from the poison she had given her flashed violently through his mind. Yan continued, her voice soft but insistent, telling him that she had brought him food and that she just wanted to talk to him, figure out how they could navigate the situation, how they could handle their marriage. Liwei let out a small, mocking laugh, the sound low and sharp. Moving closer, he told her flatly that he was not married to her, that she was married only to his signature on the marriage certificate, and as long as he did not consent, he would never be her husband, and she should not even consider him as such. Yan's heart sank. She told him that the law recognized them as husband and wife, that proof existed, and that she had every right to claim him as hers. Liwei stepped even closer, his dark eyes boring into hers. He told her again, icy and cold, that he was not her husband, that he would never consider himself as such. That signature, that certificate, that was her husband, not him. He added, his voice low but razor-sharp, that she even had the audacity to show up at his place after what she had done, and that he could end her right there if he wanted to. Yan froze, hearing the hate in his voice, seeing the disgust in his eyes, feeling the full weight of his fury. Almost in tears, she whispered that she should have killed Amara instead of keeping her alive. Something inside Liwei snapped. His hands shot out, grabbing her by the neck. His fury escalated as his gaze dug deeper into hers. He told her, voice harsh and trembling with rage, that she should never, ever say her name again, because she did not deserve it. Yan struggled, gasping for air, begging him to let go. Liwei still held her, warning her that if she thought he had forgotten what she had done, she was mistaken. He was going to make her pay for touching his woman. Finally, he released her. Yan took a shuddering breath, calling him crazy, a monster, insisting that whether he liked it or not, they were married, and that the sooner he realized it, the better. Liwei looked at her, silent, and turned to leave. Then, pausing, he walked back, grabbed the food she had brought, holding it in his hand. Yan looked at him, pleading, claiming that he still loved her deep down, that they were meant to be. Without hesitation, Liwei poured the food over her head. The warm contents drenched her, dripping onto her clothes and the takeout container still clutched in her hands. Moving closer, he hissed that the next time he heard her lips utter his woman's name, he would not spare her. She must stop coming to his house. With that, he turned and walked back inside, shutting the door firmly behind him, leaving Yan standing there, drenched in food, her fingers gripping the soggy takeout container, staring at him in disbelief. The following day, employees waited outside East Gate Group for the new president of the company to arrive. They whispered among themselves, saying that from what they had heard, he was very ruthless and cold, and that he never smiled. Finally, his car arrived, and as they rushed to open the door for him, he stepped out. As they greeted him, he kept a straight face, his sharp eyes scanning his surroundings, before making his way toward the entrance. The crowd watched him in silence, his presence alone making some of them shiver. Some of the women whispered to each other about how handsome he was, saying that whoever ended up with him would be very lucky. Liwei walked through the corridors and paused by the wall where his uncle's photographs were hung. Without hesitation, he yanked them down, the frames shattering into pieces as they hit the floor. He turned to the assistant beside him and told him to have the mess cleaned up and that he would give instructions on which pictures should be placed there instead. The assistant nodded quickly, saying he would get it done, but before he could walk away, Liwei stopped him and asked if he had been the assistant to the previous president. The man nodded nervously, saying that he had also been Fang's assistant. Liwei, his tone calm but commanding, told him that he would not be needing him and that he already had his own assistant. Without saying more, he walked away. When he entered his office, he found Fang standing there, waiting. The moment Liwei stepped in, Fang told him that he was there to guide him through how things worked. Liwei didn't respond. He simply walked to his seat, sat down, and kept his piercing gaze on him before asking if he had requested that guidance. Fang, maintaining his composure, said that as vice president, it was his duty. Before he could continue, Liwei interrupted him, telling him that there was no need for that because he was no longer the company's vice president. Fang froze, his expression tightening as he moved closer, asking what Liwei meant by that. Liwei looked back at him, his gaze sharp, and told him that he had reviewed his qualifications and that Fang did not meet the standards required to hold such a high position. The role, he said, should be filled by someone who truly deserved it. Leaning forward slightly, his voice low but cutting, he added that he would find a more suitable position for him, one that matched his level and qualifications perfectly. Fang's eyes darkened as he stepped closer, telling Liwei that he had no right to do that his father had been the one to appoint him as vice president, and that he couldn't just take it away. Liwei's voice hardened, his tone final as he told him that he was not his father and that it was simple. He could either accept the new position or leave Eastgate Group entirely. Those, he said, were his only options. Fang stood there, anger rising, telling Liwei that he would regret what he had done and that he would make sure of it. With that, he turned and stormed out, leaving Liwei sitting there watching him go. Liwei opened his briefcase to unpack his belongings when a photo fell from it, a picture he had taken with Amara during their vacation. He picked it up gently, his eyes softening as memories came flooding back. The laughter, the quiet moments, the touches, her smile, her warmth. Every image hit him like a wave. He brushed his thumb over her face in the picture, his heart aching. He missed her. He wanted her beside him. The emptiness inside him felt unbearable, and he wondered if he would truly be able to stay away from her. His woman, the only one who made him feel alive, who made him human again. He thought about how without her, he could already feel himself slipping back into the ruthless, merciless man he once was. She had been his calm, his balance, the only thing that kept his darkness contained. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of his phone ringing. He answered immediately. It was the management from Eastgate University asking if he would be attending the fundraiser and charity event that evening. Liwei replied that he would think about it, mentioning that he had several matters to handle. But just as he was about to hang up, he remembered that Amara would be presenting at the event. For a brief moment, silence filled the line. Then he spoke again, his voice steady, saying that he would be there. After hanging up, he sat back in his chair, his thoughts heavy. He couldn't wait to see her again, even if it was from a distance. He remembered his promise to her, how he had once told her that he would always be there to support her, to make sure she didn't get scared or panic when standing in front of a crowd. That was exactly what he was going to do. Keep his promise. Amara sat alone on the campus bench, the soft wind brushing past her hair as she quietly went through her presentation slides, her fingers trembling slightly over the keyboard. She still couldn't quite understand how she had one to begin with, only that everyone said she had been preparing for it for months. Yet as her eyes traced over the words on the screen, something deep within her stirred, a strange familiarity that made her heart ache in ways she couldn't name. Every phrase, Every carefully arranged line felt like something she had written before, like echoes of thoughts that belonged to her, even if she could no longer remember when she had formed them. A few feet away, Momo stood motionless, watching her in silence, her heart tightening at the sight. She remembered the night liwei had called, his voice low and heavy, telling her everything that had happened and begging her not to tell Amara about him, not to remind her of the love they had shared. He had said it was for her safety, that forgetting him was the only way to keep her from being hurt again. Momo had promised, but watching Amara now, so still, so calm, so unaware, it broke her all over again. Amara looked up and saw her standing there, her expression unreadable, her violet hair catching the dying sunlight. For a moment, Amara just watched her, then a faint smile touched her lips as she remembered her grandmother's words. "The girl with purple hair is your friend." She smiled wider and called her over. Momo blinked, quickly wiping her tears before walking toward her, forcing a smile that barely reached her gaze. Sitting beside her, she asked softly, almost as if afraid of the answer, if Amara recognized her. Amara tilted her head slightly, her smile soft and calm as she said that her grandmother had told her the girl with purple hair was her friend, and that was how she knew. Momo's smile faltered, her eyes dimming with something that looked like sorrow. She reached out and took Amara's hands into hers, her voice trembling slightly as she told her not to worry, that even if she couldn't remember anything, they would make new memories together. Amara's gaze lingered on her as Momo leaned her head gently against her shoulder, the quiet between them filled with the weight of unspoken truths. After a while, Momo looked at the laptop and asked if she was ready for her presentation. Amara nodded slowly, saying she thought she was, then hesitated before looking up at her again. She said that sometimes she felt there was someone else, a man maybe, someone she had been very close to, someone who meant something to her. Momo froze, her breath catching for a moment. She knew exactly who Amara meant, Liwei, the man who had once risked everything for her, who now lived like a shadow watching over her life from afar. Her heart ached to tell her the truth, but she remembered the promise, the weight of it heavy on her tongue. So she smiled faintly and told her that maybe it was just one of her classmates, nothing more. Amara looked down, her voice quiet as she said that she could feel it wasn't just anyone, that the connection had been deep, real, like she had once known him with her whole being. Momo only stood, forcing a small laugh as she told her it was almost time for the event to begin, and suggested she borrow one of her dresses so she'd look perfect for the evening. Amara laughed softly, shaking her head, but Momo grabbed her hand and told her she wasn't saying no. Their laughter trailed off into the distance as they walked away together, the setting sun spilling gold across the courtyard. That night, the fundraiser glowed under the soft amber lights of the chandeliers, the hum of soft piano music filling the air as guests moved gracefully around the hall. Amara and Momo walked in together, her dress flowing lightly with every step, her hair pinned back in quiet elegance. She looked around, nervous but composed, and asked Momo if she looked all right. Momo smiled and leaned close to fix a loose strand of her hair, telling her she looked breathtaking, that she was going to do beautifully. Amara's eyes softened as she thanked her, saying that even though she couldn't remember much, she still felt close to her somehow, like that part of her heart had stayed the same. Before Momo could respond, a soft murmur spread through the hall, the kind that only happened when someone powerful walked in. Heads turned toward the entrance. Liwei had arrived. He walked in with the kind of calm authority that silenced the room without a word, his black suit crisp against the light, his expression unreadable. People whispered as he passed, some in awe, others in quiet reverence. They spoke of him as the new president of East Gate Group, of his brilliance, his power, and the coldness he carried like a crown. Amara's eyes found him instantly. her breath faltering as the world around her seemed to dim. Something about him pulled at her, a quiet gravity she couldn't resist. The way he moved, the strength in his gaze, the unspoken intensity in the air between them. It was all too familiar, too consuming. She felt her heart race, a strange ache blooming in her chest, the kind that belonged to a memory she couldn't quite reach. She didn't know him. Not anymore. But something inside her whispered that she had once known him far too well.